There is an unseen current that flows through every room, every conversation, every human interaction. Most people are only vaguely aware of it, feeling it as a simple good or bad vibe. But for some, this current is not a vague feeling. It is a language, as clear and defined as spoken words. They can feel the subtle shift in atmospheric pressure when a new person enters. They can perceive the dissonance between a smiling face and a guarded heart. This is the native tongue of the INFJ personality, a soul tuned to the frequencies of intention, emotion, and authenticity that lie just beneath the surface of everyday life. This is not a choice, but a fundamental aspect of their being. And because of this heightened perception, their journey through the world is one of constant navigation, a delicate dance of connection and self-preservation. It is a path that requires them to learn, often through painful experience, which currents will nourish them and which will pull them under. The INFJ does not pull away from others suddenly or without reason. The retreat is a slow, quiet process, an internal tide receding from a shore where it no longer feels welcome. It begins with a feeling of deep exhaustion after an interaction, a sense of confusion where clarity should be, or the quiet, persistent hum of an internal alarm system. They are natural believers in the best of humanity, always searching for the light within another person, often giving far too many chances for that light to show itself. This inherent optimism, this deep desire for genuine connection, is both their greatest gift and their most profound vulnerability. It is what draws them to others, and what can leave them exposed to those who would take advantage of their empathetic nature. Over time, they learn that not everyone is safe harbor, and that protecting their own peace is not an act of judgment, but a necessary act of survival. The first presence from which the INFJ learns to retreat is that of the deeply inauthentic, the performative individual. Authenticity is the very air that an INFJ breathes. They crave conversations with substance, relationships grounded in reality, and people who are unafraid to be themselves, imperfections and all. The performative person, however, operates on a different frequency entirely. Their life is a stage, and their identity is a costume changed to suit the audience. They are more concerned with how they are perceived than with who they truly are. Their words can feel hollow, their compliments rehearsed, and their kindness transactional, offered for applause rather than connection. This lack of substance creates a profound sense of disconnection for the INFJ, like trying to have a heart-to-heart conversation with a beautifully crafted mannequin. An INFJ can spot this performative energy almost instantly. It is a feeling of static in the air, a sense that nothing real is being exchanged. They might smile politely and play along to avoid creating awkwardness, but internally, they are already checking out. The energy required to maintain a facade is draining for them, as it forces them to be inauthentic in return. They leave such interactions not feeling angry, but empty and invisible, as if they had been speaking to a wall. They would rather share a difficult, messy truth with one person than exchange 1,000 pleasant but meaningless pleasantries with a crowd. And when they realize that someone is incapable of or uninterested in genuine connection, they will quietly and respectfully move on, not to be cruel, but to conserve their energy for what is real. Perhaps the most dangerous and magnetic personality for an INFJ is the narcissist. The initial encounter is often intoxicating. The INFJ, a deep listener and natural empath, is precisely what the narcissist seeks, a perfect mirror. Narcissists crave attention, admiration, and a reflection of their own perceived greatness. The INFJ, in their desire to understand and connect, provides this reflection willingly. At first, the narcissist can appear charming, confident, and deeply interested in the INFJ, showering them with an intensity that feels like a soulmate connection. But this is a carefully constructed illusion designed to disarm and control. The INFJ, wanting to believe in this profound connection, often overlooks the early warning signs. Over time, the illusion shatters. The cracks appear as subtle put-downs disguised as jokes, conversations that always circle back to them, and a complete disregard for the INFJ's feelings and needs. The INFJ finds themselves constantly explaining, justifying, and apologizing, their own sense of reality slowly eroding. They give the benefit of the doubt, believing that past trauma must be the cause of this behavior. They think that if they can just offer enough love, enough understanding, the other person will heal. But a narcissist does not seek healing, they seek supply. And when the INFJ finally sets a boundary or says no, the charm evaporates, replaced by coldness, rage, or cruel manipulation. This painful cycle teaches the INFJ a brutal lesson. You cannot save someone who is determined to use you as a stepping stone for their own ego. It is a lesson learned in the ashes of their own energy and self-worth. The constant critic is another personality that is profoundly damaging to the INFJ's sensitive nature. INFJs are already their own harshest judges. Their minds are a relentless landscape of self-analysis, replaying conversations and second-guessing their own actions. They carry a heavy weight of responsibility and guilt, even for things beyond their control. To be in the presence of someone who externalizes this criticism, who constantly pokes, prods, and finds fault, is like pouring salt into a wound that never heals. The critic often masks their judgment as brutal honesty or just trying to help, but the words are rarely constructive. They question choices, belittle passions, and dismiss emotions as overly dramatic, slowly chipping away at the INFJ's confidence. At first, the INFJ will try to bridge the gap. They will explain their reasoning, share their feelings, and hope that understanding will soften the critic's heart. But the critic is not interested in understanding. They are often interested in control, in maintaining a sense of superiority. The most dangerous part is not the external criticism itself, but the way the INFJ begins to internalize it. The critic's voice becomes another layer in their own internal chorus of self-doubt. They start to believe that maybe they are too sensitive, that their dreams are foolish, that their feelings are invalid. The moment an INFJ realizes that a relationship is not fostering growth, but is instead planting seeds of self-loathing, they begin the process of withdrawal. They are not escaping accountability. They are escaping a toxic environment to protect the fragile parts of themselves that are still learning to grow. Then there is the energy vampire, the perpetually needy individual. As natural caregivers, INFJs are drawn to those in pain. They possess a deep well of compassion and an innate desire to support and heal. This makes them a magnet for people who are emotional black holes, those who take and take without ever giving anything in return. The energy vampire doesn't always appear demanding. They often present as a victim, approaching the INFJ with an endless series of crises, dramas, and problems. They lean heavily on the INFJ's patience, their listening ear, and their stable presence. Before long, the INFJ finds that they have absorbed the other person's emotional weight as their own. The imbalance becomes starkly clear over time. The INFJ is the constant crisis manager, the late-night support line, the unwavering rock. But when the INFJ themselves are in need of support, When they try to share their own burdens, the energy vampire often becomes uncomfortable, changes the subject, or disappears entirely. The INFJ is left feeling drained, resentful, and profoundly alone. A deep sense of guilt often accompanies this realization. They tell themselves they are being selfish for wanting to pull back, even as their own emotional reserves run dry. The lesson here is one of the hardest for an INFJ to learn. You are not responsible for carrying everyone else's burdens. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Choosing not to drown in someone else's chaos is not abandonment. It is the ultimate act of self-care. The conflict lover, or the drama seeker, creates an environment that is poison to the INFJ's nervous system. INFJs are not afraid of conflict when it is necessary for resolution and growth. What they cannot tolerate is conflict for sport. They are built for harmony, deep reflection, and finding peaceful solutions. The drama seeker, by contrast, thrives on intensity and chaos. They manufacture arguments, spread gossip, and create emotional explosions simply for the attention or the thrill of it. They will say inflammatory things just to get a reaction, and then blame others for being too sensitive when they respond. Their presence feels like a constant state of high alert, a disruption of the peace that the INFJ so desperately needs to function. Being around this constant turmoil is not just mentally frustrating for an INFJ, it is physically exhausting. Their sensitivity to emotional energy means they absorb the tension in the room, leaving them feeling anxious, on edge, and completely burnt out. It puts them into a state of survival mode where deep thought and creativity are impossible. An INFJ who has learned to value their well-being will begin to see these individuals not as exciting or passionate, but as threats to their internal stability. They will not engage in the fight. They will not add fuel to the fire. They will just simply and quietly walk away from the storm, understanding that not every battle needs to be fought and that their peace is a non-negotiable requirement for a healthy life. Finally, the INFJ will always, without exception, pull away from the dishonest and the disloyal. For an INFJ, trust is the bedrock of any meaningful relationship. It is the foundation upon which all intimacy and connection are built. They do not expect perfection, but they demand honesty. When someone lies, breaks a promise, or betrays their confidence, it does more than just hurt their feelings. It shatters their entire framework for that relationship. It creates a fundamental confusion in their mind, as they struggle to reconcile the person they thought they knew with the person who has just deceived them. The betrayal can start small. A white lie, a secret kept, a promise casually broken. But the INFJ's intuition will sense the inconsistency. It is a feeling that something is off, a gap between what is being said and what is being felt. They may even try to ignore it, to give the person the benefit of the doubt, but the inner knowing will persist. When the full truth eventually comes to light, the pain is immense, not just because of the act itself, but because of the loss of trust. Trust, once given so wholeheartedly by an INFJ, is nearly impossible to fully restore once broken. Disloyalty, such as talking behind their back or abandoning them in a time of need, feels like the deepest violation because INFJs themselves are fiercely loyal, often to a fault. They will defend and support their loved ones unconditionally. To not receive that same basic respect in return is a wound that cuts deep. After experiencing this kind of betrayal, an INFJ becomes a far more discerning guardian of their inner circle. They learn to watch actions more than they listen to words. They pay attention to patterns of behavior over time. The moment someone demonstrates a fundamental inability to be honest or a capacity for disloyalty, the INFJ will begin to create distance. It is not an act of vengeance, but one of profound clarity. They understand that a relationship without trust is a house built on sand, and they have worked too hard to build a life of truth and integrity to allow anyone to drag them back into the confusion of deceit. If you have ever felt this inexplicable pull to retreat from certain people, even when you could not articulate the exact reason, learn to honor that feeling. It is your intuition, your nervous system, and your heart speaking in unison. It is the wisdom you have gained from past wounds telling you, not here, not them, not again. The journey of an INFJ is often a journey of learning to build and maintain healthy boundaries. It is about unlearning the belief that their worth is tied to how much they can give or how much they can endure. It is about understanding that their sensitivity is not a weakness to be overcome, but a guidance system to be trusted. These 6 types of individuals are not necessarily evil, but their patterns of behavior are toxic to the INFJ's specific makeup. They disrupt the peace, drain the energy, and challenge the very truth upon which an INFJ builds their life. By recognizing these patterns, you empower yourself to protect your inner sanctuary. You do not owe anyone unlimited access to your mind, your empathy, or your heart. Your boundaries are not walls to keep the world out. They are the gates to a sacred space, and you are the gatekeeper. You have the right to decide who is worthy of entering. So consider the people in your life. Who leaves you feeling energized and seen? And who leaves you feeling drained, confused, or smaller than you were before? What might it look like to lovingly, peacefully, and without drama, let go of those connections that no longer serve your well-being? This is not about cutting people off with anger, but about allowing them to drift away with grace. It is a quiet redirection of your energy towards people and pursuits that align with your deepest values of authenticity, kindness, and truth. The more you practice this discernment, the more space you create in your life. This newfound space will not remain empty. It will be filled with people who can meet you in your depth, who value your quiet strength, and who respect your need for genuine connection. It will be filled with creativity, with peace, and with a more profound understanding of yourself. You will find that by protecting your energy, you have more of it to offer to the world in a way that is healthy and sustainable. You are not antisocial. You are not cold. You are selectively social. You are a guardian of a rare and beautiful inner world, and protecting that world is not only your right, it is your sacred responsibility. Trust the currents you feel. Honor the wisdom of your own heart, for the peace you are seeking is not a luxury, it is your nature. It is the place from which all of your gifts flow. Nurture it, protect it, and watch as your life transforms in its presence.